Hi, so this lecture is going to talk about the parts of a cell. Now, as I'm going through the different cell parts, I'm going to be comparing them to parts of a city, much like you have done with your project, if you've started your project already. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about what scientists have discovered about cells. We have the cell theory, which is made up of three parts. That all living things are made up of cells. Scientists have found that every living thing is made of at least one cell. Now the type of cell may be different, but all of them have at least one cell that makes them up. The other thing is that cells are the basic unit of structure and organization in organisms. So basically that's the smallest level you can get to and still have something that's considered living. And then finally that all cells come from other cells. So that cells come from other cells basically means that a frog can't come out of your desk. A frog has to come from other frog cells, and that living things have to come from living things is what that is getting at. So what we're going to do now is talk about all the different cell parts. The first several slides, I'm going to be talking about cell parts that are found in both plant and animal cells. And then at the end, I will talk specifically about those cell parts that are found in just plant cells. So let's start with the cell membrane. The cell membrane is what controls what goes in and out of a cell. It's referred to as semi-permeable or selectively permeable because it selects certain things that can pass through it. So there may be some things that are too big or just don't flow well through the cell membrane, and so it selects some things can get in, some things can out. So I referenced or made an example of a toll booth as something that will only allow certain things in and out of certain cities. Not really many cities around here, but there are places that you find a toll booth that are going to only allow certain things in and certain things out, or keep things out. Let's go with the nucleus next. The nucleus controls everything that's going on in the cell. And the reason it does that is because it contains DNA, which are within chromosomes, inside the nucleus. So I made the comparison of City Hall because City Hall controls everything that's going on in the city. Then let's move on to the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is the space in between all of the organelle, which is another term for cell parts. And so it's a gel-like material that fills in that space. So it's gel-like, so other cell parts can still kind of move its way through it, but it's still not as, it can't just like bounce around. It's still going to have to move slowly through that cytoplasm if any cell parts do move. And then I made the comparison of ground because ground is kind of in between all the buildings and different places to fill in that space. Next one is the mitochondria. The mitochondria are important because they fuel the energy for the cell. They help break down food, specifically like sugars in our body, and help release and make energy molecules for our body. So I compared it to a power plant. The next part is the endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER. The ER is the largest organelle in the cell, and it helps to transport molecules, different material, from one place to another. You typically find it around the nucleus. There are different types of ER. You'll see in your book that it talks about rough ER and smooth ER, but we're just going to overall talk about the ER in general. I compared it to streets that help things get moved from place to place. The next one I have is Golgi bodies. The Golgi bodies are kind of like almost like a post office or FedEx, where they take in material, they're able to maybe modify the package and then send it back out again. They have it get it all packaged, and that's what the Golgi bodies are doing. They will take in material that maybe needs to be processed or changed in some way before it needs to be sent out of the cell or sent to a different part of the cell. Then we have ribosomes. Ribosomes are found in different places inside the cell, sometimes on the ER and sometimes they're just floating around in the cytoplasm. And they help to make proteins within our cells. So I refer to it as meat market. Since meat has a lot of protein in it, I thought I'd compare it to a meat market. Our next cell part is are the lysosomes. The lysosomes will take in material that is maybe that the cell needs to get rid of, whether it's like bacteria, viruses, or other types of materials that need to get out of the cell, and also cell parts that have died or are damaged. So they get rid of what doesn't need to be there anymore. So I compared it to a garbage truck. These next couple are going to be found just in plant cells. So here we have a vacuole. The vacuole will store water. The vacuole here is this large area. It helps to, like I said, store water, food, and also waste material. But what it does is it allows the plant cell to be full. So when a plant has gotten a lot of water, that vacuole is full, and then the cell can be strong. And so if you think about when you water a plant, those branches can stick out real nice and straight. And then when you don't have, when a plant hasn't gotten water for a long time, this vacuole isn't full anymore, and so the cell kind of comes in, and so that's when the plants look all sad because they don't have any water in them, so the branches will kind of go down, wilt down, and so this vacuole will fill up with water and acts as kind of a reserve of water, so when the plant doesn't get water for a while, it can tap into that water so that it can still function properly. So I compared it to a water tower. Then also in plant cell we have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are what make the plant green because they have this material in them called chlorophyll. And the chlorophyll allows the plant to make food for itself through a process called photosynthesis, which we'll talk later about when we talk about plants. So basically what's happening is they're taking in light and making food for themselves, so they don't have to go and eat other living things. They can make food for themselves. So I compare this to a solar panel. And then finally, we have the cell wall. The cell wall is found on the outside of plant cells. Animal cells, so our cells do not have cell walls on them. Just plant cells are going to have these cell walls. And it's a protective measure. And this allows the plant cells to kind of stack on top of each other because they have that support and the protection. It's made up of cellulose, which is a non-living material. It's kind of a whole, it's almost like brick that holds this cell in place. So I compared it to a fortress wall. The last thing I want to say about the difference between plants and animal cells is their shape. Plant cells tend to be more square, rectangular in shape, and animal cells tend to be more round in shape. Now this doesn't mean that they are perfectly round and they are perfectly square, but they tend to have that type of shape. So the difference is, just to recap, between a plant and animal cell is their shape, but then also that a plant cell has a large vacuole, chloroplast, and a cell wall.